In this video, I'm going to show you how to generate Java classes from XML, or actually, I should say an XML schema. Up on the screen, I have a simple XML schema. This is from a blog post that I made about how to use JAXB and Maven to generate Java classes. So it's a very simple, very simple example here. You can see here that I'm doing a schema binding of Guru Spring Framework .domain. So that sets up a default package name, and we are creating a Java class or a class called product with product ID, product description, and product price. And then we'll also simulate some type of request. So we'll have a object called create product request, and that is going to have a payload in it of product. So it'll have one property for product. So we will set this up in Maven, and I'm going to go through this step by step. And what I've done is I've created a new GitHub repository for it, but I have not checked that out locally. So I'm going to come in here, git clone, and that's the URL, and this will be in the course resources. So it gives me a warning that I have a cloned and empty repository, which is fine. We are going to add things to it. So I'm going to come over here to IntelliJ now, and I want to come up to File, New Project, and this time we are going to go to Maven. And we call it Guru Spring Framework. And we'll do this Maven, beginner to Guru, JAXB. And I like to try to match the artifact IDs to the repository. So MB2G JAXB, double check that. So we can see the MB2G-JAXB. If I do an LS here, that is the directory I want to put in. And this is, you don't need to do this. This is just my own personal convention. I'm going to say next. And now we want to come in and tell it where to go. And in this case, we want to go to my home. You can see I'm navigating to the folders here. And there's the project folder. And I'm just going to say open there. And I'm just going to double check things real quick. Courses Maven, proper, everything looks good. So I'm going to say okay and say finish. And now IntelliJ is going to go out and generate that project for us. And that we do want to add. And while that is building, we want to say import changes. Actually, I wanted to enable auto import. That was a mistake. So I just copied my usual git ignore. So I'm going to come in here and say new file. Like so, and we will add that to git. And you can see IntelliJ was asking me to add stuff there because I didn't have that git ignore. So we definitely did not want to do that. So now this is there. And let's see here. We want to add that directory, so we'll do a git add. You can see that IntelliJ just picked this up, so I went from red to gray, saying that it is part of git ignore. So now this is a standard directory structure, and what we want to do is, I'm going to jump over here to Chrome. This is the schema that we want, so I'm going to grab this, copy that, and we can see that I named it jaxb.xsd, and we'll follow the same name. So we'll come under source main resources, do a new file. Like so. And yes, we want to add that to Git. And so this is XML schema, exactly what we looked at the beginning. So we're going to have two Java classes created, product and create product request. We can see the properties of each there. Now what we need to do is go in and configure the Maven plugin for this. And let's see here. This is the latest plugin here, and I just need this much of it. So I just need the Maven coordinates. I don't need the dependency because that is slightly different. So I'm doing build plugins, plugin, and now this is where I want to add that in. And remember, before I accidentally clicked import changes, now I want to say go ahead and enable auto import so things will automatically get imported. Now under execution, say executions, goal, like so. And by default, if I remember correctly, there should be goals, goal generate. So this is kind of a minimal configuration for the JAXB plugin. So now if I come over to Maven, and let's go ahead and do a package, what we're going to see is things go through, and we failed. So we can see that the source target 1.5. So I am going to shamelessly steal this from a project. I have my Spring Pet Clinic project open. And I forgot 2 steps here, so I'll grab that and this. And I don't think everybody wanted to watch me type all that out. So these are standard properties. So we're adding in encoding for UTF-8. That's always a good habit. Java version 11, and we can see for some reason it defaulted to 1.5. And by default, the compiler is going to do 1.6. I'm not quite sure where 1.5 came from, but now we are going to explicitly say Java 11 and the source. And then because we are running Java 11, the JAXB stuff, the XML stuff used to be part of Java, the standard Java distribution, but that was only up to Java 8 and Java 9. It is no longer part of the standard distribution. So now let's go ahead and do a clean. And let's try doing a package again. So now this time it went better. So we can see how we did have a build success. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the results of it. So we can see classes. So JAXB by default will give this object factory class. We'll take a look at that in a second. But here's our product class. So we can see that this has been generated. And actually, this is the bytecode. Let's take a look at the generated sources. That's more interesting. So underneath the covers, we are using the XJC compiler. So this is the Java source code that is created by the plugin from the XML schema. So we can see that we get the JAXB annotations, XML element, and I'm not going to go through all the XML stuff in Java. That's kind of outside the scope of the course. Do want to demonstrate generating classes. So that's the focus of this lecture, is to talk about generating the class. So you can see this is the class that was generated. And then, so that this is our product class. So we have the properties, 3 properties, and getters and setters for them, along with all the JAXB annotations for XML processing. And then we also get the create product request. So we can see that this extends out product. So we pick up the product properties, and then we are going to pick up an attribute for an API key. So this is mimicking that we're going to send a request with an API key in there. So maybe not the best design. In hindsight, I might have designed this differently, but just showing you how we can inherit and add in a property there using XML schema. And one other thing I want to point out here is within the target, we copied over the XSD. And this structure here under target classes, this effectively is what's going to be packaged up into the jar. So if we take this jar now and expand it out, we would find the XSD in there as well. So everything's self-contained. We do have all the XML components and the classes that were generated. And this is a very common thing to do. I like doing it. It's a little old school. A lot of people think that XML is old and outdated. It's still a very mature technology. It gives you strong typing. I really like XML. People don't, because it does definitely have its warts, but I do like it. And it is a very common use case to generate classes from an XSD. And now, let's say I had, I don't know, 20 different classes in this. And this jar can now be shared with other projects. So let's say I'm working on an API, a REST API, and I want to expose this product class. So I can come up with an XSD like this, generate this, and let's say somebody's using like Python, I can give them this XSD and say, this is what my data types are for the API. Or if somebody's a Java developer, I could share this jar of types with them or reuse this jar in other projects. So a lot of versatility here in doing this, but the primary takeaway I wanted you to get from this is how we took, I collapsed the target directory. We added in a JAXB XSD. So this is the XSD that we added into the project. And that is the only thing that we have in there. So when I check this into GitHub, the Java directory will be missing. All we'll have is the resources. So I will leave a link to this. We're only going to have one check-in in this case. So we'll have the resources, the git ignore, and then the POM. So the POM here, very simple. Let's take this from the top. I'll collapse this out. So we had to go in and add in some properties. The encoding, this is project build properties UTF-8. Good habit to have. We set the Java version to 11. That is what we are running. I set the JAXB version to 2.3.0. And then here we are using a Maven property called Java version. And that is set up here. And this is going to the Maven compiler source and target. Remember, initially it defaulted to 1.5, and it was complaining that it was lower than 1.6. So I'm not sure where 1.5 came from, probably the plugin, which is some old school stuff. So we overrode that and set those properties explicitly. The JAXB stuff, because we are in Java 11, we do have to include these dependencies. Next was to add in a build plugin, the org.jvnet JAXB2 Maven 2 plugin. And we are grabbing the latest version. That is 14. Let's take a quick look at the Maven releases. We can see this was released in May 31, 2018. So this plugin is still being actively maintained. And finally, we just added an execution goal of generate. So when the build runs, we will hook in and run the goal of generate. And that falls into the build sequences. And the result is we are using the XJC compiler. You can see generated sources. So these sources get generated by XJC. These are the classes generated. And ultimately, it goes through the build lifecycle, and Maven will compile those and put them into classes, and then ultimately put it into the jar.